Did you know that in 1518 people danced themselves to death? Yes, you heard it right. In the heart of Strasbourg, France, a peculiar event unfolded over 5 centuries ago. It was the summer of 1518 when a woman named Frau Trophäa stepped into the street and began to dance. Nothing too out of the ordinary, you might think. But what if I told you she didn't stop? That's right, Frau Trophäa danced without rest, without sleep, and without explanation. As days turned into a week, something even stranger happened. People began to join her. One by one, dozens turned into hundreds. Like Frau, they danced with wild abandon, swept up in an inexplicable fervor that defied reason. They danced in the streets, they danced in their homes, they danced until their feet bled and their bodies ached. The dancing, relentless and unending, continued for days on end. But this wasn't a joyous celebration or a coordinated performance. This was something else, something eerie and unsettling. People weren't just dancing, they were dancing themselves to exhaustion, even to death. Yes, death. Several people reportedly died from sheer exhaustion and heart attacks, their bodies unable to sustain the relentless physical exertion. This bizarre event, known as the dancing plague or the dancing epidemic, bewildered everyone who witnessed it. And it continues to baffle scientists and historians to this day. What could have caused such a strange occurrence? Was it a psychological phenomenon, a religious frenzy, or perhaps some unknown illness? Despite countless theories, the truth remains shrouded in mystery. Imagine a dance so compelling, so powerful that it could lead people to their demise. A dance that transcends the joy of movement, crossing into the realm of the inexplicable and the terrifying. A dance that more than 500 years later we still struggle to understand. So the next time you hit the dance floor, remember the dancing epidemic of 1518. Moving on to our next historical peculiarity, did you know that Australia once declared war on emus and lost? In 1932, Australia was grappling with an unexpected crisis. No, it wasn't a political uprising or an economic downturn, but a large, flightless bird. The emus, native to the Australian outback, were wreaking havoc on the crops and farmlands. A population explosion of some 20,000 emus descended upon the wheat fields of Western Australia, causing significant damage. The government, in an attempt to control the situation, turned to the military. Armed with machine guns, the Australian forces set out to tackle the emu menace. It seemed like a simple mission, but as they were soon to discover, these birds were no easy prey. The emus, with their natural agility and speed, proved to be elusive targets. The soldiers found them difficult to hit, and the emus seemed to shrug off any bullets that did connect. As the campaign wore on, it was clear that the military's efforts were having little impact on the emu population. In a twist of irony, the emus seemed to be winning the war. The Australian public watched in disbelief as their government struggled to deal with a flock of birds. Criticism mounted, with some newspapers dubbing the fiasco an emu war. The government eventually called off the operation, having failed to curb the emu invasion. The public outcry over the perceived mistreatment of the emus led to increased conservation efforts. Today, the emu remains a protected species in Australia, a symbol of the country's unique wildlife. The Great Emu War of 1932 is a tale of unexpected adversaries and unforeseen challenges. It serves as a reminder that sometimes nature has its own way of fighting back. And that's how the emus won the Great Emu War. Quite a feather in their cap, wouldn't you say? From emus to buckets, history does have a weird way of surprising us. Did you know a war was fought over a bucket? Yes, you heard it right, a bucket. A simple everyday object that we often take for granted. Now let's travel back in time to the year 1325 to the heart of Italy. In the Middle Ages, Italy was not the unified country we know today, but rather a patchwork of city-states, each with its own set of rulers, laws, and, as you'll soon find out, buckets. Two of these city-states, Bologna and Modena, had a rivalry that was about to escalate in a way no one could have predicted. The story goes that soldiers from Modena stole a wooden bucket from a city well in Bologna. Now, this wasn't just any bucket, it was a symbol of pride and honor for the people of Bologna. And as you might have guessed, they were not happy about this theft. They demanded the return of their bucket, but Modena refused. And so, as with any good feud, tensions escalated and war was declared. Yes, all over a bucket. The ensuing battle, known as the Battle of Zappolino, saw thousands of soldiers clash on the fields. It was a gruesome affair with many lives lost, all this bloodshed, all this chaos over a wooden bucket. Now you might be wondering whatever happened to that infamous bucket. Well, it's still around. Today it's displayed proudly in the Ghirlandina Tower in Modena, a stark reminder of a time when a simple object could ignite a war, and a symbol of a rivalry that spanned centuries. So the next time you use a bucket, remember it was once a cause for war. For our final crazy historical fact, let's delve into the tale of a pig that was hanged for murder. Picture this, the year is 1386, and we're in France. A pig, yes, a pig, was put on trial for murder, but not just any trial. This pig was dressed in human clothes and stood before a court of law. Now you might be wondering, how did we get here? In the Middle Ages, legal practices were, well, a little different from what we're familiar with today. The law was not just for humans. Animals could be held accountable for their actions too. This particular pig was accused of murdering a child, a grave crime indeed. It's a scene that's difficult to imagine today, isn't it? A pig dressed in human garb standing in the dock being tried for murder. But this was a time when animals were seen as sentient beings capable of committing crimes just like humans. The court proceedings were taken seriously. The pig was represented by a lawyer who argued its case just as they would for a human defendant. Despite these efforts, the pig was found guilty. The sentence? Death by hanging. Now this may sound like an isolated, bizarre incident, but it was actually part of a broader trend. During the Middle Ages, there were numerous cases of animals being put on trial for various crimes, from insects damaging crops to rats stealing food. This peculiar pig trial tells us a lot about historical views of justice and animal rights. It reflects a time when the boundaries between humans and animals were blurred, where animals were seen as moral agents capable of good and evil. It's a fascinating glimpse into a past where the legal system was as much a theater of the absurd as it was a pillar of justice. It's a reminder of how much our understanding of the world, of nature, and of justice has evolved. So the next time you see a pig, remember that they too had their day in court. From dancing plagues to bucket wars, history is full of strange and intriguing tales. It is these oddities that add a pinch of peculiarity to our past, making it all the more fascinating. Let's take a quick jaunt down memory lane, shall we? We started our journey with the dancing epidemic of 1518, a bizarre event where people danced uncontrollably for days on end in Strasbourg. This strange occurrence, while bewildering, was a mirror to the societal stress and religious fervor of the time. It was a dance of despair, a macabre waltz spun by the threads of history. Next, we hopped over to Australia for the Great Emu War of 1932. A conflict between man and bird, this war was a testament to the challenges of agricultural management in the face of nature's unpredictability. The emus may have won the battle, but the war ultimately led to better policies for managing the emu population. Then, we stepped into the bizarre chapter of the War of the Bucket. This Italian War of 1325, fought over a stolen bucket, reflects the intense rivalry and territorial disputes of medieval city-states. A bucket might seem trivial, but in the context of the time, it was a symbol of honor and pride. Finally, we ended with the curious case of a pig being hanged for murder in France during the 14th century. This unusual event underscores the anthropomorphic tendencies of the Middle Ages, where animals were often held to human legal standards. Each of these stories, as strange as they may seem, are windows into the past, reflecting the customs, beliefs, and societal norms of their times. They serve as reminders that history is not just about dates and wars, but also about the people, their cultures, and the peculiar incidents that shaped them. So I encourage you all to delve deeper into history. There are countless more such fascinating stories waiting to be discovered. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the annals of crazy history. Until next time, keep exploring and stay curious.